I invented a series of journaling prompts where if you work through all of them, it will give you an actual well-rounded understanding of yourself as a person. So this prompt idea is inspired by Carl Jung's Archetypes. So the psychologist Carl Jung developed his idea of archetypes after he studied stories across cultures and history, and he noticed that a lot of the stories had the same type of characters that exhibited the same type of characteristics. So the reason I think that this is a good way to approach journaling to learn about yourself is because the archetypes aren't meant to be personality templates. So it's not like Myers-Briggs, INFP, or like INFJ, ENFP. It's not like you are one of these things and that's what you are. It's more that you're meant to think about them like story characters. You would embody each archetype in your life in a different aspect, in a different way, right? So in one aspect of your life, you would be the hero character, and in another aspect, you would be like fool or the rebel or the mother, right? So each archetype refers to your function in that story, but it's not like the entirety of who you are as a person. So I followed the 12 most popular or like common archetypes that you can find online for this video, but there's like an infinite number of them in actuality. I think if you go through all of those journaling prompts, if you do it properly, I think it'll take you a couple days. Run your answers to the very end, and if you start writing and you keep writing and you get into the flow of it, just continue until you need to stop. If you get to the end and you realize that you started talking about something that's unrelated to the beginning of the question, it doesn't matter because it's about introspection. The archetype idea is not like a real thing, right? It's just a good way to get a well-rounded understanding of yourself. The creator. So the creator is the archetype that demonstrates imagination and innovation. So they're the person that wants to drive change and innovation and bring something unique to the world with their creative expression. So the first question is, what do you want your legacy in the world to be? It doesn't have to be something creative in the sense of like traditional sense. It's just, what do you want to be remembered for? So the second question is, do you think that you're creative? Why or why not? And do you think that creativity is something that's cultivated in people, or do you think that some people just are naturally born that way? How do you think that you could possibly cultivate creativity or thinking outside of the box in yourself? As the name suggests, the creator really likes to think outside of the box. They really want to contribute to their field and provide a gift to society. Another question is, do you have a burning life passion? Is there like a craft or a piece of work that you feel very strongly about that you think is your purpose in this life? And it's okay if you don't. Follow-up question is, do you think you'd be more fulfilled by chasing your passion all the way? Or do you think you'd be more fulfilled by finding balance in all aspects of your life? I think these are both good answers. It could be a mix of both of them. It could be a sliding scale of either one, but figure out where you are on that scale. So the next question is, are you a perfectionist in your work? If yes or no, do you like that about yourself? So the negative aspect of the creator is that because they're so focused on producing new work and something that leaves a lasting impression on the world, it can negatively impact the other aspects of their life. The lover. So the lover, kind of obvious, it's about passion, it's about desire and connecting with others and the world around you. So it's about pursuing intimacy and pleasure and appreciating beauty in all of its forms. But I think it's also about meaningful relationships. It's about the desire to have an intimate understanding with another person. So the first question is, do you think you're a sensitive person? Number one, sensitive in the sense that you think you're very in tune with yourself and the world around you. And number two, are you sensitive in the way that you think you're very easily affected by other things? So are you sensitive like people around you affect you a lot? And then for each of those aspects, do you like the sensitivity that you have in yourself or your lack of sensitivity? Do you like that about yourself? Why? So the second question is, do you feel like you act impulsively based on your feelings? And do you like that about yourself? So another aspect of the lover is that because they're kind of wearing their hearts on their sleeves, they can act impulsively based on their emotions. Has acting impulsively ever led you to making a hasty decision or regret? And if you don't feel like you act impulsively, do you like that about yourself? Do you wish that you were more spontaneous? Is that something that you want to cultivate? And the third question is, when was the last time that you were heartbroken? This doesn't have to be in a romantic sense. It could be just heartbroken in the sense of or sadness or being let down by something or someone. How has that changed you? The magician. So the first question is, when was a time in your life where you were manipulative or where you used your knowledge in a way to get ahead? So the magician archetype is the one that focuses on transformation and the ability to create change through power and through knowledge. So they're the character that can harness unseen forces around themselves and change themselves and the world around them. But because of that, the magician character can often be tempted to use their skills for personal gain or in a manipulative way. So this question isn't asking you whether you're a manipulative person, but it's just like, when was a time that you tried to, advance yourself, but you did it in kind of an offhanded or sneaky way? So the second question is, do you think that the world and the universe around you is working in your favor? Or do you think that everyone is out to get you? Why do you think that? What life experiences have you had that gives you this worldview? So another characteristic about the magician archetype is that they're very prone to losing touch with reality because they're so obsessed with the idea of the possibility of change and harnessing power around them. So the third question is, what's something that you wish you could change? This can either be something about yourself or about the world around you. It can be something tangible, or it can be like an intangible concept or characteristic. So the caregiver is the character that prioritizes the well-being of other people, and they're driven by a very deep desire to support and care for those people. So these are characters where they have a very strong instinct to protect other people, and they can provide a lot of comfort and safety to people that are vulnerable. So the first question is, who's someone in your life that relies on you, and in what capacity? So for example, maybe you have a child or a sibling or a parent. Maybe you have a pet. How do they rely on you? Do they rely on you for emotional support, for financial support? And try to give very concrete, tangible examples of how they rely on you for support. It could be yourself. Maybe you rely on yourself for support, but again, concrete examples. How are you taking care of yourself? How are you implementing things that help yourself? The second question is, who's someone in your life that you rely on for support, and in what capacity? And the number 3 is, who's someone online that you rely on for support, and in what capacity? I think especially nowadays, it's unrealistic to not chalk up that we spend a lot of time online. There's a lot of people that you look for online that bring you comfort. So for example, it could be a YouTuber. It could be a comfort TV show, like a TV show that you watch while you're studying that you enjoy, and it's just something that's nice. What's something that comforts you? What's a song that is comforting to you? Try to make a list of them, or give a tangible reason why it's comforting to you. So the next question is, what's an area of your life that you give too much of yourself to? So the negative aspect of the caregiver archetype is because they're so selfless, it makes it very difficult for them to say no to helping others, and they might give too much of themselves away even if they don't have the capacity to. So for example, do you give a lot of yourself in love and in relationships? Do you give a lot of yourself to your family? Are you very dedicated? Do you give too much of yourself to your career? Are you a workaholic? And then on the flip side, what's an area of life that you don't give enough to? It might be the opposite of that previous question. So the sage archetype is the person that embodies wisdom and knowledge. So they're the character that wants to seek truth and enlightenment and offer guidance and insight to people that want to seek their wisdom. So the first question is, who's someone that's taught you something that has profoundly impacted your life? This doesn't have to be an actual person. It doesn't have to be a teacher. It could be like a role model. It could also be someone online that's had a big impact on you. It could be an idea or a character or a concept that's had a profound impact on your life. The second question is, what's a topic that you wish you were more knowledgeable about? And then follow up from that, reflect on why you haven't investigated this topic further, especially if it's something that's really interesting to you. Is it because that you think you don't have the intelligence to understand it, or do you think that you don't have the time for it? So ask yourself, do you know that you don't have the capacity to understand this topic? Have you tried to fully delve into this topic that you're very interested in? Why or why not? The second archetype is the Everyman. So like the name suggests, the Everyman is meant to be the character that embodies the normal person. So they're meant to be down to earth, they're relatable people. They reflect common human experiences, right? So very typical everyday lives, very normal, ordinary joys. So the first question is, what's a skill that you think you were completely average at, completely normal? You're not very good, you're not very bad, where you were at the objective absolute middle and you don't think it's something that you stand out in at all. What's something that you're completely neutral about? Have a think about this. It might be harder to discover than you think it is, because you find that you either sway one way or the other, and if you can't find it, that's an interesting answer. So the characteristic of the everyman is that because they're meant to embody the average person, they have average qualities, and it makes them kind of hard to stand out, even though it's a good quality to have if you want to be content with a very ordinary life. So the second question is, what's the oldest object you own in your life and that you've personally had for the longest that you still use every day in your life? So an example, it might be a clock or a bowl that you have. What's the oldest object that you still physically use? It's not like sitting gathering dust on your shelf. So this is about appreciating the little things that you've had for a long time in your life. So the hero archetype is meant to represent courage, strength, nobility. The hero in a movie, in a film, in a book, they're the person that's called to embark on the adventure, right? So they're meant to leave the ordinary world, and they're meant to challenge and transform and come back with new wisdom. So the role of the hero is that they're meant to be resilient, and their courage is inspiring to other people. So the first question is pretty obvious. What's the bravest thing you've done? It doesn't have to be brave in like a traditional sense where you did something crazy. It could be like something that you were frightened of, or like mentally you had a block around doing and you ended up doing it. It can be just that. Another aspect of the hero archetype is that because they're the hero and they have a lot of achievements, it's more common for heroes to be overconfident and arrogant about themselves, right? So the second question is, what do you think is an area of your life that you're too prideful or egoistic about? So an example is, maybe you think that you're smart, maybe you think you're good at school, or you think you're the funniest in your friend group, or maybe you think you're the best at scooping ice cream at your part-time job. It can be something like that. Maybe you think you're good looking. What is the thing in your life that you're proud of, but like in a way that can make you a little bit narcissistic? So the Jester is the silly, goofy character that embodies humor and lightheartedness and a playful approach to life. So they're like the comic relief character. So the first question is, do you think that you're funny and lighthearted? So not if other people think you're funny and lighthearted, but like, do you feel like a lighthearted person? And the second question, do you think you take things too seriously? Or do you think you take things not seriously enough when you should? So either one, whichever one you think you are, reflect on why that is, and do you like that about yourself? Has someone ever told you about that, and how do you feel about being that way? Third question is, how have you found humor in a very serious situation? The rebel. So the rebel archetype is the person that is defiant, they're non-conforming, and they desire change. So the rebel is the person that challenges established norms and conventions, and they're usually pursuing a form of social justice or freedom. So the first question is, what's a time in your life where you stood up for yourself? The second question is, what's a time that you stood up for another person? Rebels play a really big role in driving societal change, and without them, society wouldn't really progress. So their willingness to question the norms and allow them to stand up for authority is what makes them stand up for their beliefs. And the third is, when was a time that you should have stood up for someone, or you should have said something, but you didn't? So for the third question, it could be either that you should have stood up for another person, or that you should have stood up for yourself, but you didn't do it. And then ask yourself why that is if you didn't stand up for them. Is it like a fear thing? Is it because you didn't realize you were being treated a certain way at the time? Run the thought all the way to the end. The innocent archetype is a character that embodies purity, simplicity, and an unwavering belief in the goodness of the world. So it's about optimism and childlike wonder. So the question for this archetype is, what area of life are you naive about and that you don't have a lot of knowledge about? So this could be work, career, love advice, finance. It could be about like self-awareness, self-introspection. The second question is, what is a topic of conversation that you don't like to talk about, or that you shy away from confrontation of? An example would be love. Are you someone that pushes people away? Why do you feel this way, and why do you think you do that? Maybe it's lifestyle and health. Maybe you're in denial about something. Do you have a vice that you don't like people confronting you about? Are you just non-confrontational? Do you just not like conflict? Why is that? Do you like that about yourself? The third question relates to the naivete of the innocent archetype. And so the question is, what's something that you think is just really cool? Something that you look at and it just gives you a childlike wonder. What is that thing? The ruler. So the first question is, do you personally feel like you have a responsibility to yourself and the world around you? Why or why not? So the ruler is the character that embodies leadership and authority. They're the natural leader. They hold positions of power. Generally, they feel that they have a responsibility to other people and to maintain order and ensure the well-being of the world around them. Second question. Do you think that if you had the power to impact change, would you do a good job? Why or why not? And do you want the authority and the ability to affect other people in this way? So the next question is, do you think that it's more important to maintain stability or to embrace change? Why do you think that? So another characteristic of the ruler archetype is that because their focus is so much on maintaining stability, this can oftentimes hinder their ability to kind of adapt to their circumstances and embrace innovation. They're often kind of symbolic of the old way of doing things. The explorer. So the explorer character is the one that's adventurous and they're curious. They're the ones that are always looking at new horizons and trying to push the boundaries and explore the world and also themselves. So these are people that are very independent and they really value their freedom. So the first question is, what's an area of life where you take the most risk? I think you should answer this question even if you think you're very cautious or if you're very anxious and you're risk averse. There are going to be some areas of life where you're more cautious than other areas of your life where you're more adventurous, right? If you can't really figure it out because you feel like you do everything very cautiously, then ask yourself, why is it that you're so cautious? Or why is it that you act that way? And do you like that you act that way? If you're very risk averse, if you're very cautious, do you like that about yourself? If you're someone that does take a lot of risks, ask, why do you feel that way as well? Do you think the risks you take are reckless? Do you think it's restlessness? Do you think there's like a lack of stimulus or something that you're looking for in the risk you're taking? There's no right answer. Through archetypes, you can see that you yourself, you're not like a static person. You can be a lot of different things. I think oftentimes, especially now, we really like categories. We really like the INFP, oh, you're an extrovert. It makes it very easy for you to see yourself in a certain way and then kind of pigeon yourself into acting that way. So actually, I feel like identifying with a trope comes before your actions in a certain way. So I hope that this kind of helps you understand that you don't have to do that. There are instances in your life where you can show up as the hero, or you can show up as a villain, or a mother, or the wise old man, or the fool, and that you are all of these things, but in different aspects of your life. Please follow me on Instagram, Substack. You can send me a tip on coffee, or you can buy original art on coffee. Bye.